that being said, you change the word to energy. Boy, what a tremendous difference. Because, you know, we've all been taught in the beginning was Jesus. It doesn't say that, but it says in the beginning was the Word, but we're always taught in the beginning was Jesus. And there's very few people realize that there was no Jesus until a baby was born in Bethlehem. And that's been one of the biggest problems among Christians, that they don't understand the difference between the man Jesus and Christ.
Right.
I've been saying for some time now that when in the beginning, when God created man, man is not necessarily a male, but man is mankind.
Yeah.
And we've been told that God created one man, and then out of that one man, He brought forth a woman, and then all of creation came out of that. That's impossible.
That's busy.
In the beginning, God created a man, male and female created He. Yeah. That was Christ.
Yes.
That's the corporateness of who we are. In the beginning was energy. Wow.
Yeah.
You know, I've been saying probably for 20, 30 years, I've been saying God is like energy. But I've only recently begun to understand that God is energy. And I used to use the example all the time, I still do sometimes, because picturing God as energy, as an analogy to God, I used to tell people who were having a hard time with their flesh, or trying to overcome certain things, I'd say, look, God is just like energy. And if you go over there and unscrew a light socket and get some bare wires, and you grab that bare wire, what are you going to get? That energy, don't care if you're good or don't care if you're bad, it's going to infiltrate your being. And so no matter how bad you are or how good you are, if you will take the time to sit in the presence of God, that energy in you will begin to flow.
Yes.
That energy will infiltrate every fiber, every avenue of your thought and brain. And it will transform you. And you don't even have to have any God.
That's right.
I've known people, well, I shouldn't say people, I've known one or two people that couldn't read, that was full of the essence of God. I thank God that in these days, when I very first began ministering, my message was, you got to drop the intellectual gospel. Because as long as your gospel is intellectual, you will never progress into spiritual reality. We were visiting someplace last night, and somehow the topic of Oprah came up. And it was said, well, Oprah, she thinks that Jesus isn't the only way to heaven. I said, well, I don't believe that either. And there was a shocked look on the face, but people don't understand. Because if you think of what Christianity has done by telling people that you have to know Jesus, and not only know Him, you have to receive Him. That means that probably 90% of our world will never make it and never have any spiritual contact because they don't have the proper intellectual knowledge to do so. So I said to this person last night, like I've said so many times before, God is not looking at your intellect, He's looking at your heart. And so no matter what religion you're brought up in, I know there are Buddhists who are much more full of the presence of God than Christians. It has nothing to do with your intellectual understanding, although that can help. It has everything to do with what Lynn was talking about tonight. God has to stir up a desire within our heart. And that's what he's done all over the world these days. And when the desire begins to arise in your heart for God, I don't care if you're a Buddhist, a Hindu, or a monk, I don't care what you are, you will begin to cry out from deep within your being, and God will meet you right where you are.
Yes. Amen.
Yes, thank you.
God is no respecter of religion, especially. If all things, which I shouldn't say if all things, since all things, I'm going to take that if out of my vocabulary, but since all things came out of God, and God is omnipresent, which means God is everywhere, in all things, everywhere,
At all times.
then show me a man or a woman that doesn't have God in them.
Amen.
If there is one person in this earth that doesn't have Christ in them, he's not omnipresent.
That's true.
Right.
That's right.
And that little revelation alone can change your whole concept towards humanity.
Yes.
And when you begin to not look according to the flesh, what Paul told us in Corinthians, no man after the flesh, not even Jesus. He said, no longer we know him after the flesh, but according to the Spirit. When you begin to realize that that light, that energy, that force, that being, the awesomeness of all that God is in all of creation.
Yes.
And you're not to judge according or after the flesh.
Right.
Well, then you can't see prostitutes, you can't see,
That's right.
you look beyond the fault. Remember the song? You look beyond our faults and saw our need. I wish Christians would do that. I watched the video the other night, or the other day, and boy, did I have a grieving in my heart. Because it was a video on the Christian right movement in Uganda. And whether the law was passed yet or not, I don't know, because I don't know how old the video was. But they were in the process of passing a law to make gay people, or to be gay, illegal. And if you were caught